Hi everyone, my name's Jen Burden. I work for the Oil Region Alliance, and today I'm be happy to give you a tour of the historic Tarbell House. Just a little bit about the Alliance. We are a nonprofit organization that mostly deals with history, tourism, and development. We are also part of the Oil Region National Heritage Area. It's a special designation, and we are only one of 55 heritage areas across the country. And we are special for our history of the birthplace of the petroleum industry, which I'm sure you'll learn much more about during your history camp this week. So this house was built in 1870 by a man named Franklin Tarbell. Franklin actually didn't start the house from scratch. He bought what was called the Bonta Hotel in nearby Pit Hole. And you may learn about Pit Hole during your history camp, but it was what we call Boomtown near what's now Oil Creek State Park. So he bought this large building that at the time it was built cost $60,000, but he bought the building for $600. Quite a deal. He moved the usable materials to the site and used them to build this house. So it's kind of an early example of recycling and reusing, something that we still do today. Franklin moved his family up here after the house was finished, and at the time, they were living in Rouseville, which is just north of Oil City. The Tarbell family included Father Franklin, his wife Esther, with oldest daughter Ida, and Ida's siblings Sarah and brother William. The house as you see it now is almost the same as when Franklin built it in 1870. However, one wing burned down in the 1920s after workers used a blowtorch to try to remove paint from a window. However, when the Oil Region Alliance assumed ownership of the property, we tried our best to restore the house to look as close as possible to Franklin's time. As a writer, Ida's first major work was a biography on President Abraham Lincoln. The book received high praise from many people. However, Ida's most famous for her investigative journalism, and her major work was her investigation into John D. Rockefeller and his Standard Oil Company. What she uncovered was quite disturbing, and Rockefeller had many unethical practices in his company and was running it as a monopoly. No, not that monopoly, but we'll discuss that later. Her work eventually led to the Sherman Antitrust Law, which is a law that broke up monopolies like Rockefeller's company. Her work was so famous and garnered so much attention that she was able to write for the rest of her life different books and then give talks at different places. Welcome to the house tour. Unfortunately, we don't have any photos of the house's interior from the Tarbell family, so we decorated as it could have looked from the Victorian period in the 1890s. Victorians like bright colors, fancy curtains, and lots of lights, which is why there's so many windows. The lights are special too. While Franklin Tarbell built the house first with gas lighting, once electric lighting became popular, that's why they used. The upward-facing light mimics the gas lights, while the downward lights are what modern light bulbs look like. This room is the parlor, which was kind of like the party room. Anytime the Tarbells had people over, this is where they all sat. They would snack and talk in this room with important people like prohibitionists, academics, oil workers, and suffragists. Maybe growing up around so many influential people helped Ida become an investigative journalist. This room was probably a sitting room, which is kind of like a living room. If the Tarbells wanted some quiet time, they could come in here and relax. Sadly, nothing in this room actually belonged to them. All of the furniture is of the same time period, so while the Tarbells may not have owned this chair, or cabinet, or table, they may have owned one like it. You may have noticed that the colors in this room aren't as bright as the others. That's because this is the kitchen. Unlike nowadays, people in Victorian times didn't like letting other people see their kitchens, so they put them at the back of the house. Since no guests would see this room, it was left clear and undecorated. The shelves are full of antique china, glassware, and silver, which are used for fun events. While the stove looks old, it's actually an electric stove, disguised to look like the coal or wood-burning stove the Tarbells would have owned. Victorians had a separate room for eating that wasn't part of the kitchen. This is the dining room, and it is special because of the curved wall. Franklin Tarbell built it himself, using his experience as a barrel maker to develop the curved woodwork. Since the building was badly burnt in the fire, a lot of what you see in the house has been rebuilt, but the staircase is original. Franklin, Esther, Ida, and her siblings went up and down this staircase to access the second floor. The second floor is an apartment now, so unfortunately you won't be able to see that. Last but certainly not least is the cupola. This little tower was where young Ida loved to spend her time peering into a microscope. This part of the house was actually taken off, rebuilt, and put back on, kind of like Legos. While the stairs are very steep, the view is worth it. The streets are calmer nowadays, but imagine what Ida must have seen. Horses pulling oil barrels, dogs on walks, oil derricks pumping away, oil men calling to one another and building new structures. I hope you enjoyed your tour of the Tarbell house and learning about the Tarbell family, and I hope one day you'll be able to visit the house in person. Bye!